create content that inspires you? Talent that is simply too dope to describe? Welcome to Fahrenheit TV.
Fahrenheit TV.
Fahrenheit TV is a live monthly variety show that showcases people's greatness through narratives and artistic expression.
We're back with a brand new season of content that will uplift your soul.
Tune into our live episodes here on BNN TV or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Be sure to follow us on social media to keep up with all our latest news. We hope that you'll tune
in. Fahrenheit TV. Fahrenheit TV.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fahrenheit TV. We are so excited to be with you here virtually for our November episode. And our extraordinary guest today is Ashley G. Welcome to the virtual show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yes. You know, Ashley has worked in the government for years. She's really passionate about public service, and she even worked for the White House during the Obama administration. I mean, we have, someone who made history, an icon on our platform. So we are so excited to talk to her a little bit about, this new administration that's coming up and how we can still be advocates and, still keep them accountable, but also, just talking about us, as the years winding down, how can we, continue to have these goals in mind of what we want to do in the new year? How can we practice self-care? Because, it's the holiday season during this time. And we're going to learn a little bit more about Ashley's greatness because, anybody that we have on this platform does great things. They're building their legacy and we are honored to witness it. So welcome to the show, Ashley. So excited to have you here.
Yes, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. It really means a lot to me.
Of course, Queen. So before we get into, talking about this new Biden-Harris administration coming up, I just want to check in on you. How have you, found peace during this pandemic? I can't believe it's 9 months. 2020 is about to, it's like, what? I would have never thought we would be here back in March when it was like, oh, we're just going to take a week off. Now it's like 9 months. So how have you found peace? What have you been doing during this pandemic? Just, talk to us about whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Sure. I think it's been a mixture of just like ups and downs.
Yeah.
I, like a lot of people, I was like, okay, like it'll be like a month. Like April, it'll be fine. Mm-hmm. Everything will be calm, it'll be fine, we'll be back to normal. And then I was like, okay, May's gonna be fine. Normal. June is gonna be fine. Yep. And I think it really like dawned on me as like I started to like miss things and like had to cancel. Like before it was like, oh, you push out the flight, and now it's like this is canceled.
Yeah.
And those things that it was like, oh, we're gonna be in this for the long haul. Yeah. And especially because this has been politicized, like we are living in a weird time where everything is politicized. Like I remember a few years ago there was like a debate about, well, if you drink Dunkin', you must believe this. And if you drink Starbucks, you must believe in this. And I'm like, coffee. Like it's
at the end of the day, it's coffee. It's the same thing. Yeah.
Like it shouldn't be politicized. And it's the same thing with this, like this situation and everything. And it's kind of weird because we have been through this before historically, like, had the Spanish flu. And so it's like but we also have built up systems and things of that and like warning systems and all that kind of stuff to kind of like prevent these things from happening. Every presidential administration has some kind of pandemic or epidemic that they have to deal with, but this is the first time that it has come to our shores in a cataclysmic way in a very long time.
Wow. It's just like when you say Spanish flu, I thought we would have learned so much. This would have been handled way more than 9 months ago. You know what I mean? Like it's just ridiculous how heightened it's gotten.
And it's not the technology or the health part that we have, because we have learned, like, during this Spanish flu, literally people were just outside, like they face they didn't really have structures. We've been able to, you know, take and build, at least like build structures, build those things, contact tracing, those kind of things that we've have done. But what has made this situation so terrible is the politicalization of it. And
Yes.
has blocked a lot of the natural safeties that we usually would have. So,
Yeah.
I mean, Ronald Reagan had HIV. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
during the Obama administration, they had Zika, Ebola,
Yep.
swine flu, all these things. So it's like every administration has something. There's always
Mm-hmm.
going to be something. And like looking forward, this was on the horizon, just given all the different things that have been happening. But
Mm-hmm.
the level and magnitude of it, I think people were not prepared for it. And just the fact
Oh,
of the underpreparedness of not just us, but also other countries as well, and the lack of cooperation between the nations as well.
yeah. It's
So
crazy to me because like even when you were like mentioning like Obama had like Ebola and all, like he didn't have Ebola, but during his administration they had to deal with the Ebola outbreak. Ronald Reagan had that HIV outbreak, but it's just crazy to me. Like it kind of reminds me of like Ronald Reagan. And again, on Fahrenheit TV, this is just our personal views. We're not representing anybody. It's crazy to me that like during this administration, the Trump administration, like the current one, that like wearing a mask was a political thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like I would have thought he would have been more like, yeah, wear a mask, stay away from each other, like practice social distancing. But I just wasn't seeing that. And it kind of reminded me of like during like the Reagan administration where he didn't really even mention HIV and AIDS, during that time for a long time. It's just like crazy to me. I don't want to say it's like like a Republican thing. I just think it's like, it just reflects on the leader at that time. But yeah, it's just, I would have never thought I would be living during this moment, like, you know what I mean? A moment like this. I thought it was something that we would read about in books or something like that. But
we
yeah.
have probably lived through a lot in the last 12 years. We probably have lived through a lot of historical moments, whether
Oh yeah.
positive and more of a greater period than a very long time.
Oh yes. Us millennials, wow, we got stories to tell in the future. We have a lot of stories.
Multiple recessions.
Yeah, multiple recessions. Like we survived all of them. We're still here.
Like a lot of generations, they'll have like one a generation, or like they'll
Mhm.
have like one when they're younger and like one later on life. But it's like
Yeah.
multiple, like
But
very.
where do you want to start? 2000 and whatever? Okay, sure. So during this time, this happened. That's crazy. But you know what? So it's the month of November, the holiday season's here. But just reflecting back on the first week of November, during national elections, I feel like everybody's anxiety was on a high because like you said, this was like it was so heightened, like nothing we ever expected. Like I never thought elections would go like this ever in my life. Like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh. And I work at the post office, so it was like crazy busy over there with all the mail-in ballots and stuff. And then just like having to wait for results for days. I think that was like the most different thing I've ever, because normally by the next day. But
Yeah.
it took like almost a week to know. But how are you feeling? How are you feeling after election week? I'm glad it's over and I'm relieved of the results. I'm like, yay, happy, makes me a little happy. But how are you feeling, during that first week?
For me, I feel like it's a start. So
Mm-hmm.
I also, like a lot of people, had anxiety and all those things. And so for me, I'm one of those people, I'm a doer. So I'm like, I have to do something.
Yes.
So I'm very lucky enough and privileged enough to be able to take time off. So I basically was like, all right, I'm going to take a vacation day. And I worked at the local polling station.
That's awesome. You were at the polling station. Yes, that's the type of leaders we have on our show. I love it. How was it working at the polling station? Because normally you don't see a lot of young faces there. Was it a different?
Yeah, well, that's the main reason why I wanted to do it, because it usually is something that retirees
Mm-hmm.
do because they have the extra time.
Mm-hmm.
They can take a whole entire day to do something, but because of everything that's happened with the pandemic, a lot of people are afraid, with good reason,
Yeah.
because you have a lot of in-person and contact and everything. And then also too, a lot of people are even afraid to even use transportation. So it's like, do you
Yeah.
public transportation to get back and forth and everything, put yourself at risk.
Exactly.
So, I started to realize, I started to hear, people talking in different organizations, like this organization called Power to the Polls. They started to like put out like Instagrams and tweets and all this kind of stuff and saying like, hey, we need people. We need people there. We need people, like, this is something important.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those people, if I can try to help in the best way possible, like safely.
Yeah.
I do have a lot of elderly members of my family, so also like being safe is a big thing for me. I'm gonna help. Like this stuff that we're doing and the things that we're doing right now. This is not just for the ancestors, but also more for importantly your descendants.
Exactly.
You're laying the foundation and being like, okay, we're gonna do this, we're gonna move this, so that way the future is great, is better. You're planting the seeds for trees that you may not ever know the shade for. But you need to get the soil ready, put the seeds in the ground, nurture it as best as possible, because other people have planted trees for you that you got to enjoy the shade, and like they never got to see that. Like there's a lot of things my grandparents just like didn't get to see. Like the first time I voted was back in 2008, and I voted for President Obama, and my grandmother sadly had died right before that. And I just remember being like, I wish she was here to see this. Because like, I mean, she got to see him become, the candidate and stuff and everything, which was a big milestone. But I wish she got to see him actually become president, because it was something that a lot of people in her generation just couldn't fathom. Just like.
I mean, no, I would have never thought. I would have thought like maybe when we were a lot older, like, you know what I mean? Like when we were becoming, like elders ourselves, like, oh, finally, we've seen this. But yeah, we
like I grew up listening to Tupac, and I was, I'd be listening to Change.
I remember he used to say that too, like, we'll never see a black president. And I was like, man, I know, maybe not in our lifetime, but we did. That's so awesome. So speaking of that, I mean, because I know you're going to talk a little bit more, but like I wanted to, talk about how, I'm sorry that your grandmother wasn't around to see him win the actual election, but in my imagination, I wonder what she would say just to think like her granddaughter started working actually at the White House for Obama. Like I know she's super proud of you. So, can you give us a little bit of like how that experience was working at the White House, and what did you do? And, even like, did you ever think you would work for the White House? Is that something that was in your goal list, like in your...
Not necessarily. So I was inspired to go to public service partly because of my grandmother. My grandmother, she only had a middle school education. She was originally from Texas. She had a very, very difficult life. And in her 50s, she just got involved with community activism and just was like looking around in our neighborhood in Roxbury and just noticed that there were so many things that needed to be fixed. And so she got involved in that. And we as children, me and my cousins and stuff and everything, she would babysit us. So we would go along for the ride. We would, put up signs and ask people to sign petitions and all that kind of stuff. And we would meet the mayor and city councilors and all this kind of stuff as she did this work. And so it was very inspiring for me. And then the other side of that is my father. My father inspired me because my father, he dropped out of high school and he volunteered to go to Vietnam and serve his country. And he felt a very strong pull to help his country as well as himself. And going to Vietnam really changed him because it opened his eyes and expanded his world. And he started to see the issues that were there and how it was way more complicated than what he was hearing here in the stateside, like actually being there and meeting people and seeing the different things. And later he would go on to also work for the post office. And he would be there and, he would always say, he would, tell me like how efficient the post office is and how important it is. And like with those, two inspirations is why I wanted to go into public service and everything and do my best to try to move the needle a little bit further.
And you've been doing that. It makes so much sense. Like when you're talking about those two, extraordinary people in your life, like you come from, that's like in your DNA. You come from a family of leadership, like leaders, of doers, of people that like want to make a change despite their circumstances. I love that. That's just so inspiring.
And so for me, I struggled. So I struggled for a long time to get into the government. And that's kind of like, some of the work I've been like trying to work on is like how to make the government more palatable to more people, how to open things up, how to educate people better and translate things better so that way people understand. And so for me, I had been applying for jobs like ever since like my junior year in college. And unfortunately, I just didn't get anything. So I just worked a bunch of random jobs and stuff and everything.
I feel you, girl. I was doing the same thing. Yep.
Yeah, a lot of millennials do that. Like you're like, you know, you have like the ideal, but then it's like I also still need to make money.
Exactly. I got to pay these student loans. They're not playing games.
So you do different things. And I was just applying for internships and jobs in DC. So I was applying for everything from like retail work to like internships to regular government jobs and just, you know, shooting my shot everywhere.
Yeah.
And failing, like honestly just failing. And so I decided I still was going to move to DC because I had gotten into grad school. And I was like, well, if I go to grad school, hopefully while I'm in grad school, I can like get a job. Like maybe it'll be different once I'm actually physically there. And I would, you know, I just kept applying for jobs, at school, and I didn't hear anything. And one day I just got an email for a phone interview, and it was from the White House. And my first thought was like, this is some scam. Like, this
I would have thought it too. I'm like, really? This is what you're going to do to me after I've applied for all of these jobs?
Like, this is because like, I think I applied for the White House in like May, and I got like, you know, like November. And I was this is some like scam. Reading the email over and over, you know, the things they teach you about like looking for like phishing emails. So I was like, making sure things spelled correctly, making sure like the email address is like within the like domain realm.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, all right, yes. And I took the phone interview, and I was just so nervous. I was so stressed out. Like I had just started grad school, it was my first semester. I still was adjusting to living in DC and everything.
Yeah, all these new things that you have to like get used to.
I was by myself. I didn't have too many friends. So I just, you know, I took the phone interview, and there was a question, and it was like, well, who's your favorite president? And I've thought about this. I have like a whole criteria, and I didn't say Obama,
like
because he didn't fit the criteria.
Yeah. He was still new during that time. Like, you know what I mean? He didn't put, you know, all the years in yet.
Well, that's the thing, right? So, like, that was, like, the caveat. And I was like, I only rate presidents afterwards because I want to see their full...
Yeah, the full portfolio of what they've done and stuff. I feel you.
Like, you could mess up in the last year. And I was like, however, given the track record, he probably will be my favorite. But his administration's still... ongoing.
Yeah. But I think they like the honesty. You know what I mean? You wasn't just like, oh, well, just Obama, just because, you know, he's black and he's not president.
I didn't think that. And I just remember thinking like, you idiot. Why did you say Obama? Why did you go on this whole entire story about your criteria and why the criteria and all this kind of stuff? You just said Obama and call it a day.
Yeah. I think that's the easy answer. That's what probably all the other candidates would have just said. But I feel like they want that honesty. You know, they want someone that really will, you know, keep them accountable, will have a vision and plan and stuff. I mean, that's how I would see it if I was interviewing you. I'd be like, well, I'm glad she actually thought about this and not just like told me one word and I'm like, all right, next question, you know?
Yeah. And so the interview, I didn't hear anything. And then in December, November, I got an email saying, congratulations, you've been given a tentative offer and everything. And I was like, oh my God.
Yo, that's grandma up there. That's the ancestors. That's the vision. You know what I mean? Like all those other things that you were applying to, it wasn't in the vision of what God's plan had for you. I just think that's an amazing story. Like that was meant to be. That was meant to be.
Yeah, and so I started and I worked there through basically the last year of the administration.
Wow.
And I worked in correspondence, so I would read emails regarding foreign policy and defense that would be going to the president. And I didn't realize...
first eyes before Obama looks at it. Oh, yeah, that's amazing.
I never realized this process. And that's, you know, one of the things that, you know, I've been trying to champion and advocate for. It's just like people knowing how the government works.
Yeah.
And I realize like you can email the president.
I mean, to be honest,
I cannot see it.
Yeah.
But you can do it.
But the thing is, like, it's not even like, I don't know, when I was in school, they didn't really push this stuff towards us. You know what I mean? It's like you just learn about like the branches and stuff like that, like very limited education. But you didn't really like. I would never seen like people that look like me, like you know, in there, young people especially. Like, no, most of the time it's usually, you know, white cisgender, all male type of people that you see in those positions, and you know, handling all those things. So it's so refreshing to finally see like people that look like us, you know, young energy in there, like advocating for that. That's just amazing to me. I'm like, we should be pushing this more in schools and stuff. Like,
and that's very true. Like, civic education is very important, and that was the great thing about the last administration, where they really did push for that. Like, the White House was very much diverse, and not diverse in terms of just like race or gender, but also too just like where people were from, where different walks of life. I mean, prior to this, I worked at a startup, and then before that, I worked at a call center. And so I was shocked that like I got picked, and I got picked on first shot. Like, some of my peers and everything, they had applied 3 and 4 times and never got picked.
Because you were part of the vision, queen. You were part of the vision.
I just shot my shot. Like, literally, I just like Googled and I saw it come up, and I was like, you know what? Why not?
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to get it, but I'm going to at least try and shoot my shot. And when I got it, I was just stunned. And then from there, I ended up being appointed, and I ended up working for the Department of Defense. So I worked at the Pentagon, and I worked on military health issues, and particularly involving infectious diseases. So basically what happened is that as Ebola and the difficulties that was happening in West Africa with Ebola, the administration was taking lessons learned from this and rewriting and writing new policy to cover it, because, you know, similar to what was going on now, it's like, oh, new things kept popping up. But it's like, well, what are we going to do about this? What are we going to do about that? And having that policy in place. And so that's what I did as a political appointee, is that I worked on that particular policy. And I also helped transition. So because I was there towards the end, I also helped with the presidential transitions. I mean, when I worked at the White House, especially towards the end, it was just like, we got gate jumpers, we got death threats.
I think that was probably like the everyday thing for that administration all the time.
Yes. And that sometimes is very scary.
Of course.
We had to be very protective, you know, taking certain precautions and things of that sort. Like, I didn't really talk about what I was doing. And I didn't even tell my family. Like, you know, my mom would be like, oh, how was your day? I was like, it was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did some stuff, and, you know, before class, and then I went to class. So I was also going to grad school full time. So I literally was like working full time and going to grad school full time. So like,
it's hard to balance both, because I mean, like, you're balancing that, but you're also trying to protect your mental health. I'm hearing, because, you know, all these death threats and all the other stuff that you have to just kind of like, all right, this is unfortunately part of what we have to work through, but still getting the work done, and then still trying to pay attention in school and adjust to a new city. How were you able to, you know, balance all of that?
I'm going to be honest with you. I have no idea. I think personally, and I think what really got me up in the morning is the passion and the drive to try to make America a greater place.
Yeah.
Make America a better place, and try to make America live up to the values and the things that it says on paper.
Yes.
And sometimes when I was just tired, exhausted, like it was finals, it was midterms, those things, just getting up and moving my body and being like, okay, like, even though you're doing a small, tiny part, art is help playing a bigger role.
Of course, yes.
Fahrenheit TV. Fahrenheit TV.
I wanted to ask you a question because I love that you, like, from the beginning, that you tried anyways, that like even if you were like, you know what, I might not get this job, but you tried anyways, and that perseverance and that courage, that bravery to do that, to get you to, have this amazing experience. Did you ever like go through imposter syndrome at all, like when you were there? Like, and how did you kind of like get yourself out of that? Because I feel like a lot of us, especially like young Black and brown people, sometimes you might be like, oh, that's a little that's not like something that we do or whatever. And I love that you are such a great like inspiration. This story alone is such a great inspiration to tell you like you literally could do anything. Just like give it a shot. You just never know what the universe has aligned for you. So how did you manage your imposter syndrome and kind of get out of that?
It took me a really long time. It took me actually afterwards. So I had imposter syndrome when I went to college.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Wesley University in Connecticut. And it's a little Ivy, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember like all of a sudden like having this information overload and dealing with all these things. And I almost dropped out. Like I was just like, you know what? They made a mistake. I don't belong here. Mm-hmm. I just want to go home and be in my, bubble. And like, back where, I was a superstar, I graduated, the top of my class and everything.
Oh, that's queen.
I was part of the honor society, and then all of a sudden in school, I wasn't doing well.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't figure out what was the problem. And then on top of that, to try to help me, I'm the type of person where sometimes I'm just like, the best way to do anything is that you just got to put your feet to the fire.
Yeah.
So I struggled and everything. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to sign up for this very rigorous academic major because it's going to push me to go further. Yeah. And even that was very hard. Like I was the only Black person in my class.
Wow.
And I was like,
how that feels.
Yeah. And I was one of 7 women, in a program that, it's a very hard program. So they only accept 30 people a year. Mm-hmm. And it was me. And sometimes it was hard, like defending my views, defending those things, having those resources. But I will say is understand, like, even if your value is not recognized, you do have value and you bring stuff to the table. Ask questions, connect with people, network, Google stuff. I mean, literally, I Googled the job. Like I literally was like jobs in DC and like internships in DC and just like, and like reading things and reading, what people had to say and stuff and everything and applying for it. And so I feel like you should just even if you are not where you think you need to be or want to be, even if you just put yourself in the room, in the environment, and you show up, for me, like, I was like, I really care and I'm really concerned about this election. So let me become a poll worker. I have the ability. I'm able to it. I know other people don't. So let me do this for myself, but also for the people who can't. And it was a very valuable experience because I got to interact with a lot of people who were first-time voters and know what to do or were afraid or had questions or had like heard, crazy things about why they couldn't vote or why they shouldn't vote and all this kind of stuff and everything. Mm-hmm. And I would clarify those things and, put people at ease and help people out and help people understand the importance of it, especially on the local level. Recently, John Lewis died.
Yeah.
I was reading over, some of his speeches and his memoir. And he was like, I thought I was going to die that day on the bridge. Like, I thought I was getting up and I was going to die.
Mm-hmm.
I thought to myself, he was in his 20s. I never woke up and was like, you know what? I'm going to die for some human rights.
Yeah. Okay. Like, that's
for a lot of things, I've woken up to be like, I was a class officer. So I was like, I got to wake up and say prom. And I have to do this. And I got to go to college and and all these kind of stuff and everything.
But it goes back to when you were talking about like planting those seeds, you know what I mean? Like he did that and he just did it. And even if he didn't even know people like me and you, like he just did it without even thinking I'm pretty sure he had to think about it, but I don't think he had a lot of time. He just was like, all right, I'm okay on this and we're going to do this. And, him and other people are getting like, beaten up, and oh my gosh, so much violence. And even after that, even after going through all that, he still continued to fight for the people.
And that's another thing I, can encourage not is like, get yourself involved even on the micro level. Like, get yourself involved on local things. Like, in the Boston area, there's lots of meetings and discussions about moving on the future. What are we going to do? What's going to next? What's going to happen after the pandemic? Get yourself in those rooms,
Yeah.
talk to people, look up your city councilors, look up their websites, look up their social media handles, and put yourself in the room, as, with, make a plug for Hamilton, put yourself in a room where it happens.
Yes.
All this stuff is connected.
Yes.
All this stuff is systematic and everything. And so it's like, if you want to do something, if you want to stop it, or at least try to mitigate it, you have to just apply for things and put yourself in those positions, run for office. You don't have to run for the president of the United States. You can run to be a counselor, a mayor, an alderperson, a congressperson. We forget how important Congress is because they legislate the laws.
Yes. Especially locally, is how important that is. Because normally, the only thing that gets really marketed is the national elections, for the president. But all those local ones, I feel mean more than the national one. That's just
Be longer. I mean, some of these Congress people, and even on the state level, state legislators and things like that, and the city legislators, sometimes the people are in office for decades.
Yes, I know. I'm that's a long time. Are you sure their views still fit with the current times? And you know what I mean? Sometimes you have to get new energy in there, new.
And they a lot of times also run uncontested. People don't think about that because they're focused on, the mayor, the governor, president, things of that sort. And it's like, those people have a short term, they're the people you see on the news, but the people who are writing the laws, legislating the laws, and making the laws to pass through are the people who are in those positions.
Yeah.
Even knowing where they stand on things, looking up online, going to their websites, looking up, doing comparisons and things, all that stuff is to make sure that you are informed, you know who you're voting for, you know who you're elected to, and you know how to contact them.
Exactly.
Because you can write anybody, and they have an office and a staff that are there to respond to those things. And don't stop writing, especially when it's something important. Don't stop writing. Don't give up and everything, because your voice matters, because you care about to matter.
Yeah, and actually, I'm so happy that you shared all those examples of how we can continue to stay involved, especially with this, upcoming Biden-Harris administration. I kind of wanted to get into that because you shared a lot of helpful information of how we could, hold them accountable, contact them anytime, how they have their teams and stuff ready for us, ready to listen to what we have to say. So I kind of want to talk to you about this upcoming administration because although I'm relieved, that yes, finally we're getting Trump out the office. Again, Fahrenheit TV, this is just our personal views. We're not representing anybody or any agencies. I'm still a little optimistically cautious, if that makes sense, because I'm this a new administration is great, yay, we finally got new energy, people who I feel will be better leaders. But I'm still a little uneasy because I don't fully trust it all the way, because I feel much like the Obama administration, they're taking on a lot. You know what I mean? They're taking on a whole pandemic they have to deal with, with a lot of mistrust. I feel President Trump, unfortunately, spent 4 years making America hate again. And so they have a lot of things to, deal with, police brutality, systematic racism. Oh my gosh, they have a whole list of stuff. And I know I'm not the only one that kind of feels this uneasiness where it's yeah, I'm happy that, they're in office, but are they actually going to make changes? And so I don't know, do you have any thoughts on that? How are you feeling about this new administration?
For me, I feel like it's a beginning. And, we don't know what's going to exactly happen. I think the biggest thing we should have taken from the last, honestly 12 years, because this stuff, the things that we're seeing started long before even 12 years ago, but really started to kick off the flames 12 years ago. We really need to be mindful of the things that are going on, mindful of, first off, information. One of the think that we've seen in the last, decade or so is this rapid growth in like social media and how the importance of social media has gone. I'm a kid of the 90s and I just remember like, being told don't trust the internet. Don't,
Yeah.
read the internet, don't read into it. And now it's like, okay, I need to see the doctor. They're on the line,
Yeah, exactly. It's the main source. Like, this is what you need. This is the tool.
Stuff and everything. We have smart houses, so it's like, your home is online and stuff.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that has happened and the reason why we have so much issues and everything is because of lack of quality information and misinformation and lies and not and how easy it is to fabricate things and doctor things and things of that sort. So be mindful of where you're getting your information from.
Mm-hmm.
The sources and everything, even if they are saying things that you like and you believe, be mindful of like, well, where they're getting that information at.
Mm-hmm. Fact check. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do they have an agenda? What is their agenda? What is their purpose and everything? Are they trying to sell me something? Are they trying to persuade me? And asking yourself questions and, even just going ahead to look it up. I mean, we carry small computers in our wallets and purses now.
Yeah.
Look it up, like I remember someone was telling me about a constitutional amendment and they're like, oh, well, the Constitution Amendment says this and that. And I was like, I don't think that's true. And they're like, no, this person on this talk radio show that I listen to every day.
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z. And I just Googled it. I was like, all right, let's pull up the Constitution and let's look at that specific amendment. And I was like, I don't see any words.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, going to for that extra mile for it and everything and looking up and just being mindful of your sources. It's very hard to find media that doesn't have some kind of spin because of the nature
of this culture and stuff,
those things and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But there is degrees, there's magnitudes, and so asking those questions, getting involved with local groups and everything and local organizations and everything, and writing letters, writing to your legislators, really putting the pressure on your congressional representatives.
Yeah,
we're going to be here long after Biden and Harris are gone.
Mm-hmm.
And so writing them and saying, hey, this is important, this is something you need to do, this is a bill that you might want to introduce, or this is something, and continually to keep writing them and asking for information and doing. And then also working on the local level, like so much of our day-to-day lives is based on local politics, local people and things of that sort, and saying, hey, these are the things I want to see in my community. These are the things I don't want to see in my community.
Mm-hmm.
Working with community groups and organizations that already exist. If you can't donate money, which is absolutely understandable, try to donate time.
Yes, even more valuable.
Yeah, you can do phone banking, you can do flowering and stuff and everything, and making sure at minimum, the bare minimum is that you vote every election, because primaries are so important. And people don't realize that. Like, a lot of people are very dissatisfied with our choices for presidential candidates.
Mm-hmm.
What the realization is, part of that was the fact of like primaries.
Yes.
Primaries weeded out other people that people favored more, but other people didn't favor more, and then people didn't vote. That's great that you love a politician or you think this person is better, but you have to go out and vote for that person.
Yes.
And even if it does fail, that doesn't mean that next time it's going to fail.
Exactly.
So you to keep, doing that over and over again. And it's exhausting. Like, I'm not going to say that. Like, I personally am worried that once the inauguration happens and things start moving and everything, people are just going to collectively sigh and just be like, okay, well, it's done,
Yes, I feel the same way, because I was like, we were speaking earlier, and it was like, I've seen this, like, the past 4 years. I feel like I've seen activism really rise, you know what I mean? Like, and people are really, like, taking, responsibility on their own terms to try to make a change or try to bring more attention to a problem. And I'm like, I love seeing all this, but I hope you guys don't forget that just because we have Biden and Harris in the office doesn't mean you could just chill. Like, we have to continue to stay engaged post elections and with this administration and stuff. So thank you for sharing all those wise tips and stuff, because it's like so needed and really great for us to hear.
Fahrenheit TV. Fahrenheit TV.
And actually, I'm so happy that you said start with yourself, because I feel like this year really challenged a lot of us to start with ourselves and start, thinking like, why do I act this way? Thinking about our behaviors, thinking about our environment, our community. I'm grateful that even though 2020 was very unexpected and there's a lot of, sad things that happened, that those moments of just taking a break just to think about your own personal journey, thinking about your own personal behaviors and all that, and thinking how you're affecting other people. I'm so happy that you said that. Like, start with you, and then you can see like, okay, now how can I help impact my community, and not only that, but my lineage, my legacy, all of that stuff. I think that's important to say.
Mm-hmm. And start with yourself in terms of self-care, like making sure you're financially stable, like having an emergency fund because of the way things are. One of the biggest things that we have to do is repair the economy.
Yes.
Structure the economy, because the way things have been going, some of the problems that we're seeing now are things that have been happening for years.
Mm-hmm.
But they weren't addressed, and now it's in our face.
Yeah, like police brutality and all that other stuff.
But they for so long, and now they're in our face, and now we have to deal with them.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about that and thinking about for yourself, like, what do you need to protect yourself? What is going to make you feel okay? What's going to help reduce any anxiety that you have and your family has and things of that sort?
Yeah. I'm glad you're talking about that, because I mean, not only for the holiday season, but even with this upcoming administration, I know some of us might have anxiety, like, oh, I don't know if this is going to change or if this is going to work out. So self-care in any form that's good for you is really important.
Yes. And also, understanding what is your comfort level with things. Some people, they're going to protest. They're going to be out there. They're going to be in the streets, megaphone, mics, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
People protesting is not from them. So it's all up to you.
Yeah, because there's so many different ways of advocacy, and I love that. You could do it through art. You could be on the streets. You could be calling people, writing emails, all the great wisdom that you shared with us earlier. There's so many ways to continue to be an advocate. And don't stop being an advocate. Don't get comfortable, because, I feel like you said, like it's like almost our duty, especially, to plant those seeds for the next people, just how our ancestors have done for us. So Ashley, I know that we're like coming to an end in our interview. I know it's a little longer, but it was so many great like gems and good wisdom that you shared with us. So thank you. But there was like two questions I did want to ask you, because I wanted to ask you, like, this elections was also like a historical win, right? Having, Madam Vice President Kamala Harris. How was that for you, seeing that, like, living through another like historical moment? How did you feel about that?
I was just happy that things one, I was happy that we had such a large turnout. This is the largest voter turnout that we've had.
Largest.
Since last century. So I think it was like 1932, maybe.
Wow.
Wrong.
Yeah.
Where there was such a large voting turnout. And so for me, that makes me happy, because it's like, this is a more accurate representing of what America wants, what Americans are thinking about. And because, these people, you're not voting just for presidential, you're also voting for all these local and other federal positions and laws. So we really got a great view of what Americans are thinking about, because that's one of the biggest things that we have struggled for with a nation for the longest time, is what are people thinking? Where are people coming from?
What do people want?
Yeah, it's been a great snapshot of that, just because we had such a high turnout. So you kind of have an idea of what is going on, what is important and everything. And like I said, it's a snapshot, so it isn't a complete picture, and there is more work to be done. But I feel like that it's just a great, like I said, this is a beginning.
I couldn't agree with you more. Everything you said, I totally agree. Another thing I think I would say, for me at least, like I'm really happy that we have like the first Black and brown, vice president. That's a woman. But in some ways, I'm like, I want to make sure that we protect her but hold her accountable, because I feel like just like Obama, people are going to be a lot harder on her, especially not only because she's a woman of color, but also because of her gender. So it's like I want to make sure that when people, if you are holding her accountable, make sure you're not doing that just because of the color of her skin or because she's a woman. So making sure that her views and stuff like that, and her actions, that you're holding her accountable for that. So just wanted to point that little small thing out. But another thing I wanted to ask you is, because I know you talked about your amazing experience at the White House, is there any, best memory that you have? And that might be hard because, you were there for a while and you got to, you're doing incredible work. But do you have any memories that stick out to your mind that you're like, wow, like if I had to, write a book or something about this is one thing I want people to remember?
I would say the day I met Michelle Obama. So that was probably the best. So when you meet like higher up people in the White House and everything, you kind of don't know when it's going to happen because they're busy, like,
I know, flying everywhere and
but, we met the president, but it was like, well, they give you a ballpark and you kind of have a ballpark.
Yeah.
Any day. It's like a baby. It could be any day. You don't know.
Yeah.
You make you see signs. You're like, oh, well, maybe it'll be this day. And it's like, nope. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
And so you just don't know. And so I remember when they finally was like, all right, we're going to meet Michelle Obama. And I was like, oh my God.
Oh my gosh, how was it? Like, I remember, I've listened to Becoming on audiobooks and I love her. I love everything she stands for. How was it like being in her presence and her energy?
I think it was great because it was a very candid experience. So it's like off the record, there's no press or anything of that sort. So you get a very kind of glimpse of just of her as a person. And what was really great about her is just like, you just saw her as a person. Like, like we were talking about it, and, when you're an intern, you don't get paid. And she was like, I don't get paid either. And I was like, yeah. And it's just like, what do you do about that? How do you navigate that? And, she talked about like, I still have responsibilities, but I don't have a budget. And so how does she, in the capacity of First Lady, get things done without a budget? And like, even like self-care, like she was saying, regardless of what's happening in the world, the president always made time to work out. And sometimes it bother her because she's like, this is on fire and that's on fire. But then we also have a family. And so it's like, there are issues going on with our girls and all this other kind of stuff. How can you be lifting weights?
Yeah.
She really, pointed out to us, like, that's when she learned for herself, like, you have to take some small sliver time out. You have to be protective about that.
Yes, protect your joy. You know what I mean? Protect your peace. Because if you don't, then you really can't do the job, efficiently if you're not taking care of yourself first. I mean, yeah.
And that's especially because, like, at the time, like, I'm an only child. I had my own family issues. I was working full time. I was going to school full time.
In a new city by yourself, girl. Courage within your DNA. I love it.
Really, like, learning to take, small seconds, small whatever for myself and everything, and, and developing that. And I think for me, what was the most pivotal thing is that, part of it is that you get to take a picture with the First Lady. So you as, a department get to take a picture with her. And someone asked her for a hug and she was like, oh, of course, sure. And then she just started hugging the whole receiving line after that. And I just remember, like, when it was like my turn and just like feeling her and like her like just like hugging me. And it was great because, like, at that time I wasn't able to come home that much and everything. I was missing my family, missing my friends, and just having that. And I just remember I was like, oh my God, like
auntie, yes, thank you.
The First Lady of the United States, the Black lady of the United States who looks like me, who has like cheekbones, like
exactly. Same beautiful brown skin, like, oh my God, oh, amazing. If you were to like create like a Biden-Harris administration, if they were like, Ashley, we want you to create an event, is there anybody that you would want to be on that guest list? It could be an event about anything that you want it to be. Is there any person you're like, these few people or this one person has to be on my guest list for this imaginary event at the White House?
Wow, that's hard to say.
It could be, I know there's a lot of people, but if there's like one person or group of people, organization, whatever, that you're like, this person has to be at this White House event because of whatever reason.
So they're my family and friends, if I can invite those people.
Yeah.
I would say probably teachers.
Yes. Shout out to all the teachers, especially during this pandemic. Oh my gosh.
And like, especially public school teachers, like,
Yes.
probably have a lot of student loans.
Yes.
They're not being paid very well, or they're struggling, but just the commitment, like just seeing teachers, like, seeing teachers getting their own cars and driving to help, kids who have learning disabilities,
Mm-hmm.
trying to help go the extra mile. I mean, I remember, even for myself, like I had a teacher one time and my guidance counselor like dropped the ball for my college recommendations, and it was like the deadline. And there was like a snowstorm that was coming, and it was looking like school might close. And I was just like broke down because I was like, I've been working
So hard. Yes.
and I just remember like having a teacher and they were like, Ashley, I have the keys to school. If I have to, I will come in the snow and I will recommendations. She's like, if school is closed, I will mail your recommendations. Like Mr. Kennelly was like there for me.
Shout out to Mr. Connell. Like teachers don't get enough love as they need. You know what I mean?
Even though he's a Yankees fan, he's from New York.
Even though we still love you, though.
I would advocate. I would cancel student loans so those teachers can have that little bit of respite, so they don't have to worry about that.
I feel like they deserve that. You know what I mean? Like they're literally teaching the next generation and the next like literally teachers taught Obama. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we need them. We need to value them more and pay them more as well.
And then of course always, military family and stuff. I come from a military family and stuff and everything. The trial and tribulations that they go to, supporting their service members and then supporting their service members once they're out,
Yes.
Doing that and stuff and everything. Like, I guess, I know you asked for one, but another.
No, this is good. This guest list is looking amazing. I'm like, woo! I think this would be so dope, and it's just so beautiful to hear this story. Like, I'm not playing with you. Like, this is iconic. Like, this is so amazing to, like, hear, not only for me, but I can only imagine people, in the future hearing these stories. Like, like, oh, this person worked for this place, but they also did all this incredible work. And even after they left the White House, they continue to do work in public service and helping people and trying to make, the world a better place and trying to make people, educate themselves of how they could be involved and how their voices matter. I just want to give you all your roses, Queen, because you deserve it. And the last question I would ask you is just, how can we connect with you? Or how can we support you as well?
So I guess the first connection is you can find me, Ashley Garrett, on LinkedIn. So you can send me a LinkedIn request. You can message me through LinkedIn. My biggest thing is the momentum. So whatever you're doing, and like that's the thing, it doesn't have to be a full-time job. Like some people, they're an activist full-time. But to keep the momentum and trying to move the needle just a little bit forward every time, every little bit, whether helping someone else understand and just like helping people understand, people are people, and regardless of how you personally feel, people deserve equality. They deserve rights. A lot of the issues that we're seeing now, these are human rights issues. They're trans issues. These are not Black issues. These are not Latino issues or women's issues or men's issues and anything. These are human rights.
Yes.
And so doing that, at minimum voting, even if you go and vote and you don't vote for the candidates because you don't like them, but you're voting on the local policies, you're voting on the local people, running for things, running for office, running for board members, running for directors, deans, all these people who are the shot callers and decision makers, and not stopping. Like, okay, if if one place blocks you, you can't do that, then you go somewhere else. When I first, I was like, I'm going to work in health. I'm going to work for the Department of Health and Human Services, and that's what I'm going to do. And I completely took a different path. I've been working in oversight, which is something I never thought I would work in, but it's something I've always had a keen interest for. And
your position now is like a management and analysis, like that. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
So working oversight and working and making sure and holding the government accountable for things.
Yes.
And so doing that and everything. And so that's what I mean. It's just like, you don't know what's going to happen, and everything, but not stopping, and every little bit, every little nudge, every little bit to carry that momentum and everything and make those things happen. So I would say that's the biggest thing you can do to support me. Is just keeping that momentum, keeping that thing, having those conversations, talking with people, educating yourself, questioning things, and, working on making things and moving things forward.
Yes. Well, that was beautifully said, Ashley. I think I'm just going to end the interview there. Thank you so, so much for sharing all of that wisdom with us, for your work, for your leadership, for making time and space for all of us, and for, planting those seeds, for the many people that are going to come and continue to make impactful, work in this world. So I just want to thank you. And another thing I would say I learned from just listening to you is that the more we, think about how much we're more alike instead of how we're different, the more we can unify and actually make a change. So I just want to thank you for sharing your time and your wisdom with us. Fahrenheit TV, I hope you got all of those great gems. I hope this won't stop you in advocating for change in the new year. And just like Ashley shared with us, that you are making sure you're taking time for self-care, making sure time you're, protecting your peace, protecting your joy, and working together and not being afraid to take a chance. Bet on yourself, because you already have greatness within your DNA. You just have to realize it, take a chance. If something comes in your way, don't let that stop you. Leap over and continue working on the vision. So I wanted to thank you so much, Ashley, again for your time. And I hope you all have a great holiday season. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye.
Fahrenheit TV.